The moment Zara Hamilton saw the moving trucks rolling up the gravel drive next door, she knew her quiet life among the vines was about to change forever. She wiped the dirt from her hands onto her worn jeans, squinting against the morning sun as she watched from her tasting room porch. The neighboring vineyard had been empty for months since old Mr. Castellano passed away, and she had gotten used to the peaceful solitude. Her own small operation, Hamilton Hills Vineyard, occupied 20 acres of prime California wine country. She had poured every penny she inherited from her grandmother into making it work, spending the last 5 years learning everything she could about viticulture, winemaking, and the unforgiving business of producing quality wine on a limited budget. The trucks kept coming. Expensive ones. Black SUVs followed, their chrome gleaming almost offensively bright against the dusty backdrop of the valley. Zara felt a knot form in her stomach. Whoever was moving in had serious money, and in her experience, serious money rarely had patience for the slow, methodical work that winemaking required. She turned back to her fermentation tanks, trying to focus on the Pinot Noir that needed her attention. The harvest had been good this year, better than the last 3 combined, and she could not afford any distractions. Her distribution deal with a small chain of restaurants hung in the balance, and if she could prove herself with this vintage, she might finally turn a real profit. By noon, curiosity got the better of her. Zara drove her dusty pickup truck down her drive and up the neighboring one, telling herself she was just being a good neighbor. The Castellano property was twice the size of hers, with sprawling fields that had been sadly neglected in the old man's final years. The main house was a beautiful Spanish-style villa that overlooked the valley, far grander than her own modest farmhouse. A man stood near the house, speaking on his phone. Even from a distance, Zara could tell he was out of place. He wore dress pants and a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, expensive leather shoes already dusty from the dirt driveway. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and he moved with the kind of easy confidence that came from never having to worry about anything as mundane as money. He looked up as she parked, holding up one finger in a wait gesture that immediately irritated her. She was doing him a favor by coming over here, and he was treating her like an interruption. After what felt like an unnecessarily long minute, he ended his call and walked toward her. Up close, she could see he was younger than she expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to assess everything in quick, calculating sweeps. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone professionally polite but not particularly warm. "I am Zara Hamilton." "I own the vineyard next door," she said, extending her hand. "Just wanted to introduce myself." He shook her hand firmly. "Tristan Yates." The name clicked in her memory immediately. Yates. As in Yates Industries, the massive conglomerate that owned everything from hotels to shipping companies. She had read an article about him once, the young billionaire who had taken over his father's empire and tripled its value in less than a decade. "You are a long way from New York," she said, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. Something flickered across his face, too quick to read. "Needed a change of scenery. My uncle left me this property, figured I would see what it was all about." "Your uncle?" Zara frowned. "Mr. Castellano was your uncle by marriage. My mother's brother-in-law, I met him maybe twice." Tristan glanced around the property with what looked like uncertainty. "He apparently thought I needed a project." Zara bristled at his casual dismissal. "This is not just a project. This is a working vineyard, or it was. Your uncle spent 40 years building it." "And then let it fall apart in his last few years," Tristan countered. "No offense, but half these vines look dead." "They are not dead. They are dormant for winter. And yes, they need work, but with proper care, I am sure you know what you are talking about," he interrupted, checking his phone again. Look, I appreciate you stopping by, but I have about 100 calls to make. Maybe we can grab coffee sometime. It was a clear dismissal. Zara felt her face flush with anger and embarrassment. Sure. Good luck with your project. She drove back to her property fuming. The arrogance of the man, treating a legacy vineyard like it was just another business acquisition. She had half a mind to let him fail spectacularly, except his failure would probably drag down property values and hurt her own operation in the process. Over the next week, Zara tried to ignore what was happening next door. She focused on her work, spending long hours in the fields checking her vines, testing soil samples, planning her spring pruning schedule. But it was hard to ignore the constant activity. Crews arrived to repair the house. New equipment was delivered. At night, she could see lights on in the villa, and several times she spotted Tristan walking the fields with his phone pressed to his ear. 2 weeks after he arrived, she was in her barn working on her ancient bottling equipment when she heard an explosion of cursing from the direction of his property. Curious despite herself, she walked to the fence line that separated their vineyards. Tristan stood in the middle of a muddy mess, drenched from head to toe. One of the old irrigation lines had apparently burst under pressure, and water was spraying everywhere. He was trying to shut off a valve, but clearly had no idea which one controlled that section. Zara watched for a moment, torn between satisfaction at his predicament and basic human decency. Decency won. She climbed over the fence and jogged toward him. The main shutoff is by the pump house, she yelled over the sound of rushing water. He looked up, startled, mud streaking his face. Where? She pushed past him and ran toward the small structure near the equipment shed. The pump house door was locked. Of course it was. She looked around frantically, then spotted a large wrench near a tractor. She grabbed it and smashed the lock. What are you doing? Tristan appeared beside her, dripping and incredulous. Saving your vineyard, she shot back, yanking the door open. She found the main valve and cranked it hard to the right. The roaring sound of water gradually faded. They stood there breathing hard, both of them now splattered with mud. Tristan ran a hand through his wet hair, looking around at the flooded section of field. How much damage? He asked quietly. Zara assessed the situation. Could be worse. The vines are dormant, so they will survive. You will need to repair that line before spring, though, and probably check all the others. This system looks like it has not been maintained in years. I do not even know where to start, he admitted, and for the first time, she heard something other than confidence in his voice. You need an irrigation specialist, and probably a viticulturist to assess the health of all your vines, and a winemaker if you actually plan to produce anything. She listed these off matter-of-factly. I have called 6 viticulturists. None of them can start for months. Apparently spring is their busy season. He looked at her. I do not suppose you would be willing to consult. I have my own vineyard to run. I would pay you well. I do not need your money, Zara said, more sharply than she intended. Everyone needs money, Tristan countered. And from what I have observed, your operation is not exactly thriving. The comment stung because it was true. You have been spying on me. I can see your property from my house. I have eyes. You are running everything yourself. Your equipment is ancient, and I noticed you are buying your barrels second-hand. He held up a hand before she could protest. I am not judging. I am just saying I could use your expertise and you could probably use the income. Zara wanted to tell him where he could shove his offer, but the practical part of her brain was already calculating. The money could buy her new barrels, could let her hire part-time help during harvest, could give her the buffer she desperately needed. 2 hours a day, she heard herself saying. Early morning before I start my own work, and I choose which repairs and improvements to prioritize. Deal. Tristan extended his muddy hand and she shook it. That was how Zara found herself arriving at the Castellano vineyard every morning at 6, coffee thermos in hand, ready to educate a billionaire on the basics of viticulture. The first few days were frustrating. Tristan kept trying to solve problems by throwing money at them, wanting to replace everything rather than repair, to hire massive crews rather than do the slow, careful work himself. You cannot just rip out 50-year-old vines because they look scraggly, she explained on the third morning, walking him through a section of Cabernet Sauvignon that had been Mr. Castellano's pride. These root systems are deep and established. With proper pruning and care, these vines will produce better fruit than anything you could plant new. How long until they are productive? Tristan asked, taking notes on his tablet. They never stopped being productive. Your uncle was still harvesting until 2 years ago. They just need attention. She knelt down, gently examining the woody canes. See here, this is good growth. We need to prune back this winter, shape them properly. Come spring, they will bud out. And then what? And then we wait. Watch for disease, manage the canopy, pray the weather cooperates. By late summer, you will have grapes. Tristan crouched beside her, studying the vine she was pointing to. He was close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and clean that seemed absurdly out of place among the earthy scents of the vineyard. What made you get into this? He asked suddenly. The question surprised her. My grandmother. She left me a small inheritance and a love of wine. I studied viticulture at UC Davis, apprenticed at a few vineyards, then bought this property 5 years ago. Your family supported that decision. I do not have much family. My parents died when I was young. Grandmother raised me. Zara stood, brushing dirt from her knees. What made you decide to keep this place? Seems like selling would have been easier. Tristan was quiet for a moment. My uncles will had a stipulation. I could inherit, but I could not sell for at least 5 years. He wanted someone in the family to care about what he built. Did you know him at all? No. Like I said, I met him maybe twice at family weddings. My mother said he was disappointed none of his own kids wanted anything to do with the vineyard. They all moved to the city, pursued other careers. He looked around at the rolling hills, the morning sun just starting to burn off the fog. I think this was his way of forcing someone to pay attention. There was something almost vulnerable in his voice, and Zara felt her hostility soften slightly. He was a good man. Used to sell me his extra barrels cheap, gave me advice when I was starting out. What was his best advice? That wine is patient work. You cannot rush it, cannot force it. You put in the labor and trust the process. She smiled at the memory. Also, that most problems in the vineyard can be solved with observation and common sense, not fancy technology. Tristan laughed. I am pretty sure that was directed at people like me. Probably, Zara agreed, but she was smiling too. As winter deepened, their morning consultations began to feel less like work and more like something Zara looked forward to. Tristan was a quick study, taking detailed notes and asking intelligent questions. More surprisingly, he was not afraid to get his hands dirty. She would arrive to find him already out in the fields, attempting the pruning techniques she had shown him, or cleaning out the old fermentation room in the barn. You do not have to do this yourself, she told him one morning, finding him on a ladder replacing rotted boards in the barn roof. You could hire people. I know, he said, not looking down, but if I am going to own this place, I want to understand it, all of it. Something about the determination in his voice made her heart do a strange little flip. She told herself it was just respect for his work ethic, nothing more. In late January, her ancient tractor finally died. Zara spent an entire morning trying to resurrect it, covered in grease and cursing, before admitting defeat. She was sitting on the ground beside it, mentally calculating whether she could afford even a used replacement when Tristan's truck pulled up. "I heard the commotion from my house," he said, climbing out. "Everything okay, just perfect," she said sarcastically, gesturing at the dead tractor. "I only need this for about 100 essential tasks." He walked around the machine, examining it with a critical eye. "This thing has to be 40 years old. 37, actually. It was here when I bought the property. What will a new one cost? I am not buying new. I cannot afford it. I will find something used, maybe rent until then." She stood up, wiping her hands. "Not all of us have unlimited resources." "I did not mean," he stopped, seeming to choose his words carefully. "What if we split one? You could use it too, since you are helping me." "I do not take charity." "It is not charity. I need a tractor anyway. We could work out a fair arrangement." Zara wanted to refuse on principle, but practicality won again. "I pay half. I get equal usage rights." "Deal." They shook on it, and 2 days later a beautiful new tractor was delivered. Tristan insisted on the nicest model, far more than they needed, and Zara suspected he had paid more than half despite their agreement. But she was too grateful to argue about it. February brought pruning season, the critical time when they would shape the vines for the coming year. Zara started teaching Tristan the art of it, showing him how to read each vine, determining which canes to keep and which to remove. "Every cut matters," she explained, her hands steady as she demonstrated. "Too aggressive and you reduce yield. Too timid and you get tangled growth that will not ripen properly. You are trying to find balance." Tristan made his first cut, then looked at her questioningly. She examined his work and nodded. "Good, exactly right." They worked side by side through his vineyard, row after row of vines. It was meditative work, quiet except for the snip of pruning shears and occasional birdsong. Sometimes they talked, trading stories about their lives. Zara learned that Tristan had never wanted to run his father's company, that he had studied architecture in college and dreamed of designing buildings. "Why did you not?" she asked. "Because I was the only son. My father built that empire expecting me to take over. When he died suddenly, I was 26 and completely unprepared." Tristan paused in his pruning, "But I could not let it all fall apart. Too many people depending on those jobs, that income." "Do you regret it?" "Sometimes. Mostly I just feel like I am playing a role I never auditioned for." He looked at her. "This is the first time in years I have done something just because I wanted to understand it, not because I had to." The honesty in his words made something warm bloom in Zara's chest. She recognized the feeling and tried to push it away. Getting involved with a billionaire neighbor who would probably lose interest in his vineyard project within a year was a terrible idea, but it was getting harder to deny what she was feeling. One evening in late February, Tristan invited her to stay for dinner. "I have been practicing," he said. "I promise I will not poison you." His kitchen was beautiful, all restored to its original glory with modern appliances that probably cost more than her truck. He cooked pasta with surprising competence, opening a bottle of wine that made Zara's eyes widen. "Is that a 2005 Harlan estate?" she asked, recognizing the label. "You know your wines." He poured her a glass. "I have been collecting for years, but honestly never learned much about them. Just bought what experts told me to." She tasted it, closing her eyes at the complexity. "This is incredible. This probably costs more than my monthly mortgage." "Wine should be drunk, not hoarded," Tristan said, sitting across from her. "What do you taste?" Zara swirled the glass, considering. "Dark cherry, tobacco, a hint of graphite. The tannins are resolved but still present. It has probably another decade in it, but it is beautiful now." "Teach me," he said simply. So she did. They spent the evening tasting through several wines from his collection, Zara explaining what she perceived in each one, the characteristics of different regions and varietals. Tristan listened intently, asking questions, comparing notes. "I think this is the most I have ever enjoyed wine," he admitted. "Usually it is just something fancy to impress clients." "That is tragic," Zara said. "Wine is meant to be savored, shared with people you care about." Their eyes met across the table and the moment stretched out. Zara felt her pulse quicken. She should leave, should maintain professional distance, but she did not want to. "Zara," Tristan said quietly, "I need to tell you something." Her heart pounded. "What?" "This vineyard, spending time here. Working with you, it is the first time in years I have felt like myself. Like I am doing something real. Dirt under your fingernails will do that," she said, trying to lighten the moment even as emotions swirled inside her. He reached across the table, taking her hand. "I am serious. You have changed how I see everything." She should pull away, should remind him this was just a consulting arrangement, that their lives were completely incompatible. But his hand was warm around hers, his eyes honest and searching, and she found herself squeezing back. "I feel it too," she admitted softly. Tristan stood, still holding her hand, and pulled her gently to her feet. They stood close, the air between them electric. When he cupped her face and kissed her, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Zara melted into it, her hands finding their way to his chest, feeling his heart racing as fast as hers. They broke apart breathlessly, foreheads touching. "I have wanted to do that for weeks," Tristan murmured. "Why did you wait so long?" Zara asked, surprised by her own boldness. "Was not sure you felt the same way. You are so independent, so guarded." "I had to be. Running this vineyard alone, I could not afford to be vulnerable." "You do not have to be alone anymore," he said, and kissed her again. March brought warmer weather and the beginning of bud break, when the vines emerged from dormancy and began to leaf out. It was Zara's favorite time of year, full of promise and potential. It was even better now that she shared it with Tristan. They were together constantly, splitting time between both vineyards, working side by side. Their relationship deepened naturally, built on shared labor and genuine connection. Tristan had fully committed to the vineyard now, bringing the same intense focus he applied to his business empire. He hired a small crew for the heavy labor, but insisted on being involved in every decision. "I talked to a winemaker yesterday," he told Zara one morning as they walked his fields, checking the new growth. "She said we could produce our first vintage this fall if everything goes well. That is ambitious. Think we can do it?" Zara examined the vines carefully. The pruning and care over the past months had made a visible difference. The plants looked healthier, more vigorous. "Maybe. The Cabernet section looks strong. If the weather cooperates and you get a good harvest, you could produce a small lot." "Will you help me?" he asked. "I know you will be busy with your own harvest, but I trust your judgment more than anyone's." The request touched her. "Of course." They stopped at the highest point of his property, where the view stretched across the valley. In the distance, she could see her own vineyard, looking small but proud. "I have been thinking," Tristan said, "about the future." "What about it?" "I want to split my time. Keep running the company remotely as much as possible, but be here for all the important vineyard work. I want to build something real here." "That is a big change from when you arrived," Zara said, smiling at him. "I was an idiot when I arrived, thought this was just an obligation, another property to manage from a distance." He turned to face her fully. "You showed me what this could be." "What I could be?" "You did that yourself, I just pointed you in the right direction." He pulled her close, kissing her temple. "We make a good team." "We do," she agreed, leaning into him. April brought unexpected complications. A late frost threatened both their vineyards, forcing them to take emergency measures. They spent 2 nights running smudge pots and wind machines, desperately trying to keep the temperature above freezing. Zara worked until she was exhausted, and Tristan was right beside her the entire time, never complaining about the cold or the long hours. When the danger finally passed, they collapsed in his living room, dirty and tired but relieved. "Did we save them?" Tristan asked, his head resting on her lap as she sat on the couch. "Most of them. We will lose some fruit, but it could have been much worse." She ran her fingers through his hair absently. "You did good work. I had a good teacher. You really care about this now, do not you?" "It was not really a question. I care about you," he said simply. "This is your world and I want to be part of it." The words made her heart ache in the best way. "I love you," she said, the admission surprising her with its suddenness, but feeling absolutely right. Tristan sat up, taking her face in his hands. "I love you too. Have for weeks, but was afraid to say it." "Why afraid?" "Because my life is complicated. I have responsibilities in New York, business that needs attention. I was worried you would think I was not serious about this, about us." "Are you serious?" Zara asked, needing to hear it clearly. "Completely. I have already started restructuring things so I can be here most of the time. My vice president can handle day-to-day operations. I will fly back once a month for board meetings, but otherwise, this is home now." He kissed her softly. "You are home." Zara kissed him back, pouring all her feelings into it. When they finally broke apart, she was crying happy tears. "I never thought I would find this. I had convinced myself that the vineyard was enough, that I did not need anyone." "You do not need anyone," Tristan said firmly. "You are the strongest person I know, but maybe we can choose to be together anyway." "I choose that," she whispered. They made love for the first time that night, tender and passionate, discovering each other with the same careful attention they gave to the vines. Afterward, lying tangled together in his bed, Zara felt a completeness she had never experienced before. Summer arrived with perfect weather, warm days and cool nights that made the grapes swell and ripen beautifully. Both vineyards flourished. Zara's distribution deal expanded to include 2 more restaurant chains, providing the financial stability she had been chasing for years. Tristan's property was transformed, looking like a working vineyard again rather than an abandoned relic. They threw a small party in July for the people who had helped, the workers and neighbors who had supported them both. Zara felt proud standing beside Tristan as he thanked everyone, his arm around her waist, completely comfortable in this world that had been so foreign to him just months ago. "You have done something remarkable here," one of the older vineyard owners told Tristan. "Marco would be proud." "I had help," Tristan said, squeezing Zara closer. "Could not have done any of it without her." August brought harvest preparations, the busiest time of year. They tested sugar levels obsessively, watching the grapes and waiting for that perfect moment of ripeness. Zara taught Tristan how to read the signs, when to be patient and when to act quickly. "It is all coming together," he said one evening as they walked through his Cabernet section, tasting grapes directly from the vine. "These are going to make good wine." "They are," Zara agreed. "Your first vintage, how does that feel?" "Terrifying. Exciting. Right." He stopped walking, turning to her. "Zara, I have been wanting to talk to you about something." Her heart jumped. "What?" "We have kept our operations separate, but we work together constantly. What would you think about merging the vineyards? Not buying each other out, but becoming true partners. Equal ownership of both properties." Zara stared at him. "That is a huge decision." "I know. And I am not proposing it just because of us, though I love you and want to build a life with you. I am proposing it because it makes business sense. Together, we have enough acreage and diversity to really compete. We could build something exceptional. We would need lawyers, contracts, a formal partnership agreement, Zara said, her mind already racing through the implications. Of course. I want this to be completely fair and legal. But do you want it? In principle. She thought about it, really considered. Independence had been her watchword for so long, the idea of trusting someone else with her vineyard felt terrifying. But she did trust Tristan. Had watched him transform from an arrogant billionaire who saw this as a project into a true vintner who loved the work as much as she did. Yes, she said finally. I want it. Tristan grinned, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. We are going to build something amazing together. Harvest arrived in early September, and they were ready. Tristan hired a good-sized picking crew, and they worked from dawn until well after dark, bringing in the grapes at peak ripeness. It was exhausting, exhilarating work. Zara moved between both properties, supervising and problem-solving, while Tristan proved he had learned his lessons well, managing his own crew with competence. The winemaker Tristan had hired, a talented woman named Sophia who had trained in Bordeaux, oversaw the crush and fermentation. Zara worked closely with her, sharing her knowledge of the specific terroir while learning from Sophia's technical expertise. These grapes are exceptional, Sophia told them after the first day of crush. You have done excellent work. By October, both harvests were complete and the wines were fermenting in barrels. They would not know for months whether their first joint vintage was truly successful, but all the signs were promising. Zara felt a satisfaction deeper than any she had known before. This was what she had dreamed of when she bought her small vineyard 5 years ago, but it was so much more because she had someone to share it with. Tristan surprised her one evening in late October. He had prepared dinner again, something he did regularly now, and had set the table beautifully on his terrace overlooking the vineyard. The fall colors were spectacular, gold and red leaves contrasting with the dark rows of vines. What is the occasion? Zara asked, accepting a glass of wine. Does there need to be one? Tristan pulled out her chair. They ate slowly, savoring Sophia's cooking and the perfect evening weather. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Tristan reached across the table and took Zara's hand. I have something to ask you, he said, his voice suddenly nervous. Zara's breath caught. Okay. I know we have only been together for 8 months. I know that is not very long in the grand scheme of things, but I have never been more certain about anything. He stood, moving to kneel beside her chair, pulling a small box from his pocket. Zara Hamilton, will you marry me? The ring was beautiful, a simple emerald-cut diamond that caught the fading light. But Zara barely saw it, her eyes locked on Tristan's face, seeing the love and hope there. Yes, she said, her voice breaking with emotion. Yes, absolutely yes. He slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her deeply. When they broke apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. I love you so much, Tristan said. I want to spend the rest of my life making wine with you, growing old in these vineyards. That sounds perfect, Zara whispered. They set a date for the following June, wanting to be married during the flowering season when the vines would be in bloom. The engagement period flew by in a flurry of planning and work. The legal partnership documents were drawn up and signed, officially merging their operations under a new name, Zara Hamilton Vineyards, honoring both Tristan's uncle and Zara's grandmother. Winter brought the quiet work of tending the sleeping vines and planning for the next growing season. Tristan hired an assistant to help manage his New York responsibilities remotely, and true to his word, he only traveled back once a month. The rest of the time he was in California, fully committed to their life together. In February, almost exactly a year after their first kiss, Sophia called them to the barrel room for a tasting. Their first vintage was developing beautifully, and she wanted them to try it. Zara swirled the wine in her glass, studying its color, inhaling the aroma. Then she tasted, letting it roll over her palate. It was still young, of course, would need more time in barrel and then bottle aging. But the foundation was there, complexity, balance, a sense of place that spoke of their specific soil and climate. "This is good," she said softly. "Really good." "It is excellent," Sophia corrected. "You should be very proud." Tristan tasted his own glass, and Zara watched his face light up with understanding. He was tasting what they had built together, the literal fruit of their labor and love. "We did this," he said, looking at Zara with wonder. "We did," she confirmed. Spring arrived with perfect weather, the vines budding out on schedule. Their crews, now working seamlessly across both properties, managed the canopy and monitored for pests. Everything was running smoothly, the vineyard a well-oiled machine. Zara found herself daydreaming about the future, about children running through these rows someday, learning to love the land like she did. She and Tristan had talked about it tentatively, both wanting a family but agreeing to wait until after the wedding, until they had a full year of partnership under their belts. The wedding preparations accelerated as June approached. They kept it relatively simple, wanting to focus on the commitment rather than a huge production. The ceremony would be held in the vineyard, with reception in the restored barn on Tristan's property. Family and close friends only, maybe 100 people. Tristan's mother flew out from New York a week before the wedding, and Zara was nervous about meeting her. Miranda Yates was exactly what Zara expected: elegant, sophisticated, with impeccable taste and a sharp intelligence. But she surprised Zara by being genuinely warm. "I have not seen my son this happy in years," Miranda told Zara over lunch. "He was slowly drowning in that corporate world, even though he would never admit it. You gave him a lifeline." "He saved himself," Zara said. "I just showed him there were other options." "Do not sell yourself short, dear. You gave him something to care about beyond profit margins and stockholders." Miranda squeezed her hand. "Welcome to the family." The wedding day arrived with perfect weather, warm but not hot, with a gentle breeze that carried the scent of blooming vines. Zara wore a simple ivory dress that moved beautifully, flowing and romantic without being fussy. Her hair was loose, woven with small flowers from the vineyard. She walked down the aisle alone, having no father to escort her. But she did not feel alone. Her small chosen family of friends and neighbors filled the seats, and at the end of the aisle, Tristan waited for her with tears in his eyes. The ceremony was short and sweet, their vows personal and heartfelt. When the officiant pronounced them married and Tristan kissed her, Zara felt like her life had finally clicked completely into place. This was where she belonged, who she was meant to be with. The reception was joyful, full of laughter and dancing and excellent wine. They served their first vintage to the guests, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. Several distributors who had been invited as friends immediately asked about carrying it. "We are going to need to produce a lot more next year," Tristan murmured to Zara as they danced their first dance as husband and wife. "Good thing we just doubled our acreage," she replied, smiling up at him. "Good thing indeed, Mrs. Yates." "Mrs. Hamilton Yates," she corrected. She had chosen to hyphenate, wanting to honor her grandmother's legacy. "Mrs. Hamilton Yates," he repeated, kissing her. "Has a nice ring to it." They honeymooned in Tuscany, visiting vineyards and soaking in the Italian approach to winemaking. It was working vacation, really, both of them taking notes and asking questions everywhere they went. But it was also deeply romantic, staying in beautiful villas, eating incredible food, falling more in love with each passing day. "We could do agriturismo," Tristan suggested one evening as they sat on a terrace overlooking rolling Tuscan hills. "Add a few guest cottages, offer wine-tasting weekends." "That could work," Zara mused. "We have the space, and it would help with cash flow during the slow seasons." "Always thinking practically," he teased. "One of us has to," she teased back. "Left to your own devices, you would just keep spending money on fancy equipment." "That equipment is an investment," says the man who wanted to buy a $60,000 Destemmer when we already have a perfectly good one. "That one is 20 years old and still works perfectly," Zara insisted, but she was laughing. They returned home in July, tanned and happy, ready for the intense push toward another harvest. The vines were loaded with fruit, promising an even better vintage than the previous year. Their crew had expanded to handle the increased production, and Sophia had hired an assistant winemaker. "You have built something really special here," Sophia told them during a planning meeting. "In just over a year, you have gone from a neglected property and a struggling small operation to a legitimate player in this region." "We could not have done it without you," Zara said sincerely. "You could have," Sophia disagreed. "It would have taken longer, but you have the instincts and the commitment. I just help with the technical details." The second harvest was smoother than the first, everyone knowing their roles and working efficiently. They brought in beautiful fruit, filling every barrel and tank they had. The first vintage was almost ready for bottling, and advance orders were already exceeding their initial production. In October, after the harvest was complete, Zara realized she was late. She bought a pregnancy test almost in a daze, not wanting to get her hopes up. When it came back positive, she sat on the bathroom floor crying happy tears for 10 minutes before pulling herself together. She told Tristan that evening, just handing him the positive test without preamble. He stared at it for a long moment, then whooped and picked her up, spinning her around carefully. "We are having a baby," he said, his voice full of wonder. "We are," Zara confirmed, laughing and crying at the same time. "When, I think early June. I need to see a doctor to confirm." Tristan kissed her deeply. "This is the best harvest yet." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Zara continued working in the vineyard through winter, though Tristan and Sophia both insisted she take it easier than usual. She felt good, energized by the changes in her body and excited about the future. They turned one of the upstairs bedrooms in Tristan's house their house now. Zara had officially moved in after the wedding into a nursery. Tristan threw himself into it with typical intensity, reading every parenting book he could find, and baby-proofing the entire house months ahead of schedule. "You are going to be an amazing father," Zara told him one evening as they assembled a crib together. "I hope so. I want to do better than my own dad did. He was so focused on work, on building the empire, that he never really saw me. You will not make that mistake. You have already proven you know what matters." Spring brought another beautiful growing season. The vines leafed out right on schedule, the new plantings they had put in the previous year taking root successfully. Their wine was officially released in April, and the reviews were excellent. Wine Spectator gave it 91 points, calling it a promising debut from an exciting new partnership. Orders flooded in, exceeding even their most optimistic projections. They sold out of the first vintage within weeks and had to start a waiting list for the next release. The success was gratifying but also slightly overwhelming. "We need to hire a business manager," Zara said, looking at the spreadsheet of orders and trying not to feel stressed. She was 8 months pregnant now, tired and uncomfortable, and ready for the baby to arrive. "I already have someone in mind," Tristan said. "My former assistant from New York. She has been wanting to relocate to California, and she has excellent organizational skills. Will she understand the wine business? She is smart and adaptable. She will learn, and it would free us up to focus on the vineyard itself rather than all the administrative details. It was a good solution. The assistant, Catherine, started in early May and immediately brought order to their chaotic office systems. She set up proper inventory management, streamlined their ordering process, and took over all the customer service communications. "You are a lifesaver," Zara told her gratefully. "I am just happy to be here," Catherine replied. "This is much better than Manhattan high-rises." Their daughter was born on June 7th, early morning, with the sun just rising over the vineyard. Labor was intense and exhausting, but Tristan was there the whole time, steady and supportive. And when they finally placed the tiny baby on Zara's chest, she felt a love so fierce it took her breath away. "She is perfect," Tristan whispered, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his daughter. "She is," Zara agreed. They had decided on a name weeks ago, Thea Grace Hamilton Yates. Thea for new beginnings, Grace for gratitude. The first few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and constant feedings, but they managed. Tristan's mother came to stay for a week, helping with the baby and the household while Zara recovered. Sophia and Catherine kept the vineyard running smoothly, checking in regularly but letting them focus on their new family. By late June, Zara was feeling more human again. She would bring Thea out to the vineyard in a baby carrier, walking the rows and checking on the vines while the baby slept against her chest. It felt right, introducing her daughter to this world that meant everything to her. Tristan would meet them in the fields, taking turns carrying Thea, both of them marveling at how their lives had changed. From contentious neighbors to business partners to spouses to parents, all in the span of less than 2 years. "You ever regret it?" Zara asked one evening as they sat on the terrace watching the sunset, Thea asleep in her arms. "Giving up New York, the corporate world? Not for a second," Tristan said firmly. "That was never really my life. This is. You are, she is." He gestured at the vineyard spread out before them. "I wake up every morning excited about the day. I have not felt that way since I was in college." "Good," Zara said softly, "because I cannot imagine doing this without you. You will never have to." The third harvest approached, and while Zara could not work the long physical hours she usually did, she stayed involved in all the decisions. Thea came to the vineyard every day, spending time in a portable crib in the tasting room while everyone worked around her. The crew was smitten with the baby, taking turns entertaining her during breaks. The harvest was spectacular, bringing in the best fruit they had seen yet. Sophia was ecstatic about the quality, predicting this vintage would exceed even their second-year success. "You have hit your stride," she told them. "Everything is working together perfectly now. The vineyard health, the winemaking technique, the team. This is what success looks like." And it was. By the end of the year, Castellano Hamilton Vineyards was being written about in wine magazines as one of the most exciting new producers in California. They won awards, got high ratings from critics, and had distributors competing for their attention. But more than the professional success, Zara treasured the life they had built. Evenings spent with Tristan and Thea, walking the vineyard as the sun set. Lazy weekend mornings in bed, the three of them cuddled together. Teaching Thea her first words and watching her take her first steps through the rows of vines. By Thea's second birthday, they were discussing having another baby. The vineyard could practically run itself now with their excellent team, giving them more time to focus on family. They had built the guest cottages Tristan suggested during their honeymoon, offering wine country experiences that were booked solid months in advance. "I have been thinking," Tristan said one evening, About your grandmother's legacy. What about it? She left you a small inheritance and a love of wine, which you turned into all this. He gestured around at their thriving operation. I want to do something to honor that. What if we started a scholarship program for young people who want to study viticulture but cannot afford it? Zara felt tears spring to her eyes. She would have loved that. We could call it the Hamilton Viticulture Scholarship. Fund a few students a year through UC Davis or Fresno State. Let's do it, Zara said, kissing him. That is perfect. They announced the scholarship program that spring, endowing it with enough money to support 5 students annually. The response was overwhelming, with dozens of applications from passionate young people who dreamed of working in wine. We are creating the next generation, Zara said, reading through applications with Tristan. Maybe one of these kids will do what I did, start their own vineyard and build something beautiful. Maybe they will do even better, Tristan said. Stand on our shoulders and go further. Their second child, a son they named Theodore Marco Hamilton Yates, arrived in early fall, right before harvest. It was chaotic timing, but they managed, taking turns with the baby and the vineyard work. Thea, now almost 3, was fascinated by her baby brother, wanting to help with everything. Life was full and busy and occasionally overwhelming, but it was also deeply satisfying. Every morning, Zara woke up grateful for the journey that had brought her here. From the suspicious woman watching moving trucks arrive, to falling in love with the billionaire neighbor who had surprised her by wanting to truly learn, to building this life together. Tristan had indeed known nothing when he arrived, despite his wealth and business acumen. But he had been humble enough to learn, to listen to someone who understood this world better than he did. That openness, that willingness to admit he needed help, had been the foundation of everything they built together. 5 years after Tristan's arrival, Castellano Hamilton Vineyards was producing 5 different wines, all highly rated and sought after. They had expanded to 60 acres total, every inch carefully tended. The guest cottages brought in additional income and helped promote their brand. The scholarship program had sent 15 students through viticulture programs, 3 of whom now worked for other wineries in the region. Their marriage was strong, built on mutual respect and genuine partnership. They still disagreed sometimes, still had conflicts about priorities or approaches. But they worked through everything together, never losing sight of their shared values and goals. Thea, now 7, was already showing an interest in winemaking, asking constant questions about the vines and the fermentation process. Theodore, at 4, was more interested in the tractors and equipment, but he loved being in the vineyard too. Think they will want to take this over someday. Tristan asked Zara one evening as they watched their children play in the rows. Maybe, or maybe they will find their own paths. Zara leaned against him. Either way, they will know what it means to build something with your hands, to work hard for what matters. That is what I want for them, Tristan agreed. Not wealth or easy lives, but purpose and passion. You really have changed from the man who showed up here with designer shoes and no clue, Zara teased gently. You changed me. This place changed me. He kissed the top of her head. Best inheritance I ever received. Your uncle would be proud. I hope so. I think about him sometimes, wondering if he knew what would happen when he left me this place. If he somehow knew it would lead me to you. Zara smiled. I like to think he did, that he knew exactly what he was doing. They stood there as the sun set over their vineyard, their children playing nearby, their life stretched out before them full of promise. It had started with suspicion and ended with love. From contentious neighbors to partners to soulmates, building something beautiful together from neglected vines and uncertain futures. The vineyard would continue, passing through seasons and years, the vines producing fruit that would become wine shared at tables around the world. And through it all, Zara and Tristan would tend it together, their love growing as steadily as the grapes, rooted deep and reaching always toward the sun.